Welcome to Bets on the Future, where we highlight the various career paths in the electrifying metals world. From the vehicle you ride in to the bridge holding it up, metals are everywhere. Why not in your career too? I'm Jennifer Betts, a metals industry veteran with almost 20 years experience, here to highlight these incredible career paths as told by the women who are living them. Please give a warm welcome to Corinna Ceballos, Regional Sales Manager for Coastal Wire Company, a wire manufacturer and distributor of baling wire, which is used in the process of recycled materials. Cory brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. Get ready for an enlightening conversation about another fascinating role within the recycling and metals industry. Our guest today is Corinna Ceballos. She is the Regional Sales Manager for Coastal Wire Company, and we just want to learn a little bit more about you, your experiences, what drew you to metals, and maybe have a laugh or two along the way today.
Well, I want to thank you for inviting me, because when I saw that you were interested in inviting people to join to be on a podcast, I immediately volunteered because I've never been on one, which we'll explain a lot later. But also that I think it's such an important topic, the metals industry and the recycling industry and the awareness to the industry, because it's all around us and there's not many of us that are in it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was not aware of this entire industry before a career fair in college. So I'm always curious to know, how did you find this? Like, how did this pop up on your radar as a career?
It's a very good question, and it's a question I answer every day for people, and I love talking about it because I am actually fourth generation scrapyard. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, where I come from a processing plant that we process corrugated and plastics and non-ferrous metals, as well as books and various other things that were there to be processed and repurposed. And I've always known this industry as a backbone, and I am so happy that I've come back into this industry now, because I left for quite a long time, and when COVID hit, I opened the door back up and said, I think recycling will have me, so back at it.
Well, I think it's a very interesting background that most people are just not aware of at all. So it's very unique that you had that family connection to at least even be aware of what's available out there.
I was thinking when I was getting ready for this podcast about, I mean, if you're in this industry, I can just say like, I'm fourth generation and everyone will know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But if you're new to this industry, I like to explain what I do for a living by saying I work for a company, a steel wire company that manufactures steel wire directly from steel rod, that draws it down and creates the wire that holds the material together to transport it to the next phase of its life, which would be repurposing it into paper, plastic, aluminum, and into new products.
Absolutely. And that product is probably not seen by a lot of people, because you're typically, once those bales are made and the wire goes around them, they're getting loaded into van trailers, warehouses. The public really doesn't see that side of the recycling industry.
It's pretty fun explaining to other parents, like at soccer, like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? Like, I'm in recycling, and I get to explain it often, but then it opens this conversation for, people to start asking me questions, which I'm so glad they do, about, why we don't recycle clamshells in my particular place that I live.
Yes. Well, okay. So speaking of clamshells, what is one of the most interesting, sticks in your mind always, your go-to party story to help you describe what you do, or an interesting event that you've seen in this industry?
Growing up, I think one of my fondest memories is watching my mother haggle with peddlers about material and listening to her kind of talk about where it was going. And, one of my fondest memories, I had a friend that used to be into, metal work, and she would build these like beautiful bowls, and she was always looking for copper and other materials to repurpose. So she would always come to the yard, and my mother would walk her through, and then would pick materials, and like putting two and two together was fun, because we would go out and she'd always be like, oh, we go to the junkyard with your mom, and I'd be like, really puts it in perspective, and that's what we do for fun, and go to hang out at the junkyard.
Well, to be fair, there have been many things that I've seen in my career where I technically haven't worked in a metal recycling facility before, minus some training in that perspective. But in my visits, just seeing it on a random day that I came into a yard, there have been some incredible things that have been in the yard. I mean, I can only imagine when you're there every day and over decades that your family has some pretty good stories from that perspective.
I mean, recently I was in a scrapyard in the last couple of years, and I walked in and there was like a mermaid, like copper mermaid statue in the middle of the office. It was amazing. It was like as large as a human, shaped like a mermaid out of bed, and it's like so good. They couldn't recycle it. They just had it there.
You can't.
There's so many good things. Finds, as one would say.
Finds is a good way to put it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And part of the job that I love now is that I work with recyclers, metal recyclers, and other recyclers that are in the MRFs, which is a municipal recycling facility. And I get to go to those places every day and have like see that stuff and have those stories. And it always makes you giggle when you see like, you know, a mermaid in the middle of the office.
There definitely is. And well, you are joining me in person. If anybody could pick up from our backgrounds, these podcasts are typically going to be virtual because we are all over the country. We're around the world, but you just happen to be in the LA area.
Yeah.
Visiting a MRF or a few of them on that trip. So tell me a little bit more about kind of your day-to-day, what your job entails for Coastal Wire.
Well, I should first mention, I feel really fortunate to be able to come back to this industry in this role because I'm an outbound salesperson that gets to meet face-to-face with operators and maintenance managers at these facilities. And the intention is to get them to get interested in Coastal Wire and use our product, which is a great product by a company that's been open for 44 years.
Check out their website.
Women owned.
Yes.
So, but I came back to this industry, and coming into this role, I get to meet those people, and I feel really fortunate that I got to come back because I took a long time away, and now to come back and have the experiences to meet with people again and walk through scrapyards again and MRFs again is been great and really, really fun and eye-opening. And I never thought I would ever come back, but I'm so happy that I did.
Well, you have the opportunity, and I think COVID has played a part in this in terms of getting more companies in our industry to accept the remote work aspect of it. For instance, where are you based out of, and where's your company based out of?
That is a great question. So I'm actually based in Bend, Oregon, which is an adult playground. It's beautiful. Lovely, tons to do, and I really enjoy living in Bend, Oregon. And I work for a company based in South Carolina. That is where the mill is based. And I periodically travel back to South Carolina to visit others and visit the mill. But I am based on the West Coast and sell to the West Coast. So it's been so cool. I was never a remote worker, you know, I was in sales previously, but never a remote worker. So that I have to say, like, I really enjoy it. Like, it's pretty awesome. It's like with the time change.
Yes, it's pretty nice. It's the West Coast is a little bit of a best kept secret when it comes to that. Your emails typically wind down by 2 or 3 o'clock because your East Coast folks have already gone home for the day.
This is true. And I'm a parent, so little alone time at 6 a.m. to get through my emails is always a nice thing.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you had a knowledge of the industry prior to coming into the industry, but what was that catalyst moment? What caused you, or what drove you to seek a career the first time and then the second time in this industry?
That's a really good question. So I think the pivotal moment is I was working in hospitality prior to COVID, and when COVID hit, and I was in sales for fancy, beautiful properties all over the West.
Not bad.
Adventure travel. Right? Yeah, it was just like over temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, you know, I'm a my salary counts in my family, so getting back to work was important. do a furlough. So I started like combing through LinkedIn, which is a great resource to look through to try to find jobs. And I saw a job posting for a regional sales manager for Coastal Wire Company, someone that has previous experience with baling wire and recycling industry. And I looked at it and was like, you know, not only do I know this company because of, you know, previous work for my family's business, am I ready? Like, am I ready to come back to the recycling industry and kind of leave behind the hospitality industry? And I took a leap of faith, and I'm so glad I did, because like the sense of humor, the kindness, the feel good part of it, the part that you know you're actually helping in a conscious way, feels great at the end of the day. And making that choice like was one of the best decisions I ever made.
I think you bring up a really good point that most people don't think about. You can change careers. You don't have to get started in one area and continue going down that path. You mentioned that you were in hospitality before this. What was your education? Did you go to college? Did you major anything? Like,
sure.
Where was that path?
Yeah, I definitely was raised in a scrapyard. So my parents were like, as soon as possible, get a job at like the Four Seasons or like the Ritz-Carlton so we can visit you, because that is ideal and best for all of us. You're kind of interested in event planning.
Genius parenting.
Yeah, it was. And I immediately, you know, took that advice and moved to Las Vegas after hospitality school, and worked in Vegas, like did it, like checked it off the list, decided, you know, that was a great starting point, and moved all over the West for regional properties doing that. But the thing that I never got from it, and I mean, it was fun to stay at fancy hotels, Jennifer, I'm not gonna lie.
No, it's pretty nice.
But the thing I never got for it was like a fulfillment. And it's interesting that going back to from the fancy industry to maybe something that's a little more blue collar, I felt like was gonna be weird at first, and then it all of a sudden like suited me and suited my personality and suited, you know, actually like my personal goals and like how I kind of viewed myself as a business person.
Did you see a lot of the skills that you had gained in the hospitality world transfer over into metals?
100%. Like, I think I'm still daily, people are like, oh, I noticed that you really care about the little things. And I do, because a lot of my job is, you know, making sure that my customers that I work with have what they need and organizing it in a way to align to ordering and getting them what they need, because there's logistics, but they're nowhere as scary as hospitality. So I know that those tools that I, you know, built throughout the years in my toolbox to deal with customers and deal with brides, let's just be honest, have really helped me in this industry, because it is like, it makes me laugh at the end of the day, it makes me happy.
Part of why we're doing this is to raise awareness about the metals industry and just the variety of careers that are in this space. What would you tell someone that's even considering going into the metals world from a completely, you know, we're going to say unrelated, but let's be honest, everything's pretty much related to the metals industry, but unrelated field. What would you say to them about coming in?
I actually just recently tried to recruit 2 people into the recycling industry. I've been sharing your LinkedIn posts often because I think it's awesome. And I tell them this, I tell them, you know, in this industry, it's small and it's mighty and it's completely undetected. And if you want an opportunity to really make more money or get a, you know, have a higher position or challenge yourself in a new way, we're green and we're looking for people to grow with us. I can't think of another industry where you could step into the room and learn like within a couple of years on where you need to be and really grow your potential, like salary, your potential awareness, and your potential like customer service skills, because it's all around us.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that's been so eye-opening to me over the years, is that you can get experience in this industry. and then you can go wherever. If we ever have to move to a different state, a different town, a different country, I know based on my experience, I will find a job.
100%. Like, there is scrap metal everywhere. There is recycling centers everywhere, and there is no lack of awareness that needs to be built around the issue.
Absolutely. And something else along those lines is the metal recycling world is kind of the OG when it comes to sustainable practices.
I was actually looking this up. Like, the recycling industry is old as the United States.
Yes.
Like, from a business that closed at 120 years old, people would drive by the door and say 1912, like a business started in 1912. And like, we're not even unique. That's so many other companies as well.
Mhm.
It's crazy how the things that people didn't want have now turned. I mean, there's so much history within this industry that's probably for another podcast.
It could be a whole series. Whole series.
But just, turning turning opportunities into value, like
Yes.
coming into the industry is opening new opportunities and, getting what you can from those opportunities. Because the other thing about this industry is that if you work hard, you can definitely go really far.
Oh, absolutely. The networking in this industry is fascinating to me. For as large of an industry in terms of affecting everyday life that it is, it's relatively small in terms of the networking here, because people come into this industry and then they stay in this industry.
Right.
And so there's a lot of history and a lot of relationships between people. So you can do the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon so easily in this industry, because so-and-so used to work at this company and then they moved to this company, and then they, their cousin works over here and one of their college buddies is over here, or, I used to, work with this person. Now they're the president of this company. And it's fascinating to see people's careers over the years really grow in this industry.
I don't think I've ever been to a trade show, ISRI or Waste Expo within this industry that I haven't walked away being like, that was so fun. I saw friends, I saw people.
Yes. Yes.
I hung out with the women in recycling group, which
Yes.
is like a newly for ISRI, which may be a whole other podcast.
There's so much.
There's so fun. So fun.
Yes.
Open bar, every event. Like,
Check. I recently went to St. Louis for a metal recycling event. For those who are in the industry, it was ISRI's Consumers Night put on by the Mid-America chapter. For those outside of that, ISRI stands for the Institute of the Scrap Recycling Industries. And it is essentially the association that helps us run all the recycling facilities, help them from a lobbying standpoint, safety, education, all that. Anyway, I'm trying to increase the participation, the awareness of the metals industry. Yep. And so I decided I'm going to bring a friend, and I'm out in LA. We're in the Chief LA Clubhouse currently. We can get to that in a minute.
That's amazing.
Yes. 10 out of 10 recommend. And I brought one of my friends who's completely in a different field to this event. And she's like, well, what are we going to learn? What's on the agenda? What conference? What session? Who's speaking? And I just was like, this is a networking event. This is straight up 1,500, 2,000 of your closest friends at a bar, basically trying to connect the dots of who does business with what, have dinner, establish the relationships, because in this industry, it's really all relationship based. Right. And we more or less get to be paid to be friends with each other. It's kind of an amazing opportunity along those lines. And it's led to some great friendships. It's really been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. It's welcoming. I mean, it's based in family run businesses, and like, it's so many are still that way, that you show up at events and you're like seeing third generation, especially, up in the Pacific Northwest, where where I'm based with Israel, I mean, I'm looking at so many generations. It's so heartwarming to see it. It's great. It's so fun.
It really is. And to put the metals industry in perspective, you have essentially the start of it is in the mining, the ore, and the raw materials, which is where, you know, the scrap metal, the metal recycling facilities come into play. Then you go into the actual producers of the metals, like the steel mills, the aluminum smelters, et cetera. And then you go into the service centers aspect of it, which is those are the ones that are taking the metal that's either in coil or other forms, and then converting them into usable material that's either going to be painted or processed down the line, and ultimately wind up in a car, on your roof, an aluminum can to drink out of,
Right.
whatever it is. It's the full spectrum. And once you learn metals, you can essentially hop anywhere along that supply chain.
Right.
And
I agree.
Coastal Wire is full circle on that, because they're also purchasing raw materials as well
100%.
and producing an end product
Exactly.
that also then in turn goes back into the raw materials market.
Exactly. We're in addition producing equipment these days to tie wire. And it's all based, I mean, all of our pricing is based on the steel industry. Actually, the wire industry is still interesting in the sense that when the end user is looking to purchase new material, they're still getting quotes and bids every day, which is something that we're not really used to in like our everyday common world. Like, I need to get a price on that because the price changed. But in the commodities world and in the world of the scrap industry of metals, that's just a really fun daily occurrence. It kind of keeps you on your toes.
Oh, 100%. Most folks probably are not aware that metals are a commodity that trade every single day, every hour in some regards, that you constantly have to either be aware of what the market's doing or plan and purchase accordingly to be able to mitigate those ups and downs.
You have to, 100%. It's COVID was a real eye opener, but all I have to say really is, like, you know, during COVID, there was a lot of jobs that were being lost, and you know what was booming? The metals industry, the recycling industry. There was not enough material to keep up with the demand for anyone because of people, you know, having a need to reinvest and buy new things and just our human nature to consume. This is a foolproof industry that has been proven to be successful. So anyone that feels like they just need an opportunity, they should really come aboard. Go over your local park. Like,
yes, absolutely. You can start off the MRF, your local scrapyard, metal recycling facility. I mean, look up a mill in your area. I mean, these companies are on LinkedIn. You're talking about family-run businesses. There are publicly traded companies that have 30, 40, 50,000 employees. I mean, it's the full gamut. If you want to work for a smaller business, those options exist. If you want to work for a publicly traded company, by all means, get on board, get some stock, go that direction.
I was just talking to some women from Israel Recycling about another woman who was in the hospitality industry and having her, you know, looking to move forward. And I just like kind of put a feeler out there at one of our meetings, like, would you recommend a woman getting into this industry, like, who's no experience, like after they've been to a MRF or after they've been to a scrapyard and they get the initial like out of the way.
Yes.
And they were all like, oh, I mean, just send them my email because always hiring. Like, that's just like a common.
It is. And it's something that they're always hiring for because they're growing.
Exactly.
The population in the United States is growing. Our demand for goods is growing. Anytime that you build a building, you buy a car, you replace the faucet on your kitchen sink, it's metal. It's everywhere. And we as consumers keep growing that demand.
Yeah.
And so you're ultimately always going to have a demand for your job if you're in the metals industry. It's just straight up always going to be there.
I think skills that have translated over really well too, besides just like customer service skills and sales-based skills, are like commodity skills, like learning, you know, something. Always is great that I'm like, oh, I now know terminology of what the recycling industry calls certain things, which is different terminology. You should look up Scrap University for that.
Yes.
But it's so fun to learn. And like you said, you can kind of work anywhere. Like, not only could you probably do my job in the back of a Sprinter van when you're traveling all around the West to visit recycling centers, you could also do it all over the world, because like you said, this industry is all over the world.
It really is. There have been folks that have reached out on LinkedIn that have been from outside North America. The business dealings that I've had throughout my career have been a good chunk outside the United States. Were there anything from your research that you wanted
The
to?
research, so it's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, from my GPT chat research, it said at the end of your bio, you want to put something like, not a quirk, like something about your main goals and objectives,
Gotcha.
which you were basically the same too.
Yes.
But and I thought about that, and I think a good objective for anyone in this industry is just to learn, and like, I want to learn every day and be exposed to new experiences every day and hear from new customers and new people every day about what they need, because the one small joy from my job that I really love is when someone is like, hey, I don't know if I need your product, but I'm looking for this other product, which this pretty much happens every day at a scrapyard in the metals industry too. Anyone who deals with sales and it's funny. It's like, I have this list on my wall of things people would like to find and need. And every time I cross a name, something off that list, because I found someone else that had it, there's like this very real pride thing that happens. And
It's something that is very satisfying, right? It's great.
It makes someone's day.
Right?
Finding them like wire hangers, like made someone's day.
Right. We're sitting in the LA Chief Clubhouse currently. We're in one of the meeting rooms in here. Fantastic. We're actually technically on the corner of Melrose Place, which
I couldn't even believe the address when I showed up. I was like, I'm sorry.
This is probably the most LA thing I've done to date. But Chief is an organization for professional women, and I have been participating in it for almost about a year now. And the women that I've met in this organization have been incredible. And what I've noticed though, and it could just be a regional thing, because LA is not exactly your manufacturing hub, right? Not to say that there isn't metals companies here. There are. They're just not to the scale of if you were in the South, Midwest, East Coast, right? That's really where the majority of our manufacturing in the United States is. But I'm at a happy hour here the other night, and I go to show up metals industry night, right? Or excuse me, industry night. And they want me to look at a list of 20 industries, and I'm supposed to like fit into that bucket. And I was like, okay, metals. Okay, not on the list. Manufacturing, not on the list. I went down, I was like, industrial? I'm like, what? I even looked up recycling and that sustainability, none of what we do was included in that list of industry. And that being said, we are in the LA area, so it's probably tech, it's probably entertainment, it's probably that. But what was interesting is that when I started meeting some of these women here, if I started off with leading with metals, blank stares, didn't know how to follow that.
Like jewelry?
No, nothing. Yeah. Manufacturing, nothing. Got blank stares. The moment I started changing how I phrased it and started including sustainability, recycling, circular economy, everything that we work on in our industry, it was like a light bulb went off and it became the hot topic. It just shows there's so many people.
I mean, do you feel Chief needs more people in the metals industry and the recycling industry to join?
100%. It's absolutely.
It's really cool that you're bringing your experience of this industry to these other industries, because, honestly, have you seen what they do when they tear down sets in movie studios? Like,
didn't even think about that.
I mean, that could be that could be some money-making business right there.
I feel like
Commodity trading.
yes. I feel like we need to start a mobile scrapyard that follows the
Absolutely.
entertainment industry around to their various sets, or maybe we can just be the experts of, oh, you're going to do that in Birmingham, Alabama. I know a few yards in that area. Or you're going to go up to Vancouver. I know a few yards up in that area. Even just providing that type of service to the industry.
Absolutely. My twin sister, who is in advertising for a very long time, would always say like, oh man, you should see it at South by Southwest, like what happens to the stuff. Like, I wish they could recycle in this one way, because she's also from the scrapyard, and she like sees it, like starts calculating it, and like, maybe that's my new business, maybe that's the next new business strategy. Just
yes. And if you're listening to this podcast, feel free to loop us in on that idea. Appreciate it. If somebody has the bandwidth out there to launch this new business, you're welcome. And enjoy that. But that's another example of when somebody talks about metals, it's not necessarily, a blue collar job. It's not necessarily a white collar or no collar.
right.
There are services that surround our industry that people have the skills today to utilize.
Yeah. 100%. Especially now, I mean, in this digital age, like, can you think of a better suited industry that needs more awareness than recycling? Then there's all of this, there's information out there saying that, things don't get recycled. That's not true. Things get recycled every single day. And, I think we're scared of the logisticals and the way it looks to show those images, like I recently watched Repurpose, produced by Sierra, which was awesome. And it was like the first time we're watching video of what it looks like inside a processing plant, what it looks like there. And if we can just build more awareness, then maybe we can kind of get over that fear of saying like, it's not perfect. It's very clean. I have to say these days, cleaner than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not perfect looking, but it is what it is. And we're doing our best, and we're the ones cleaning it up. Like,
yes,
we're the ones working to really keep it in the cycle, keep it in the stream.
Absolutely. If you want to make an impact on the environment, on the climate, if you want to get into that world, the metals industry is doors wide open. There are a lot of career tracks in this industry that you can make a difference in.
You would be shocked at how just little awareness is. For instance, at our local school, we have a person who oversees all of the like green and ESG, if you will, happenings throughout the school programs, which is great because it's like composting and it's like all these things. Well, I mean, what happens to the desks and the chairs and the buildings, and why are we not teaching about the demolition and how demolition is recyclable materials? Like
yes,
concrete, wood, talking about metals and building foundations and how those get broken down and go to a local. I mean, those are also sustainable things that no one talks about, but happen every single day and should be taught.
absolutely. And on that note, I hope people have listened to us, heard us, right?
Oh my God.
Learned a little bit from today in terms of what's available out there.
It's so exciting to like get invited to do this and be in the chief clubhouse and get to hang out with Jennifer, who like obviously became friends with it, right?
Yes. And thank you so much, Cory, for coming out. I appreciate it. I know that you have a long day ahead of you. You're on your way back, so I really appreciate you trying to get through the LA traffic over here. Truly,
it's a pleasure.
Truly appreciate it. And if you've got any questions for Cory, we'll put up her contact information on the YouTube aspect of it. And for now, keep your eyes and ears open. I think you're going to see a lot more metal in your life now.
Yeah.